There are also 3 exercises that we're going to look at that are going to enhance the external rotation. So if we can open it out with stretches, we can then start using exercises to build in the muscle activity that we need to be able to hold the position much more effectively. So we're going to use a bridge, a squat, and a clam. Now, there are some people that are going to disagree with that exercise selection. These aren't the only exercises that you can use, but what they do, or what they are able to do, is help you externally rotate the hip. So we'll start with the bridge, and we're going to use a band to help us. So just a nice short band, and all we're doing is we're going to put band around just below the knees. We're going to have a sort of a hip to shoulder width apart stance with the feet, and then we're going to lie back. We're going to push the knees out into that external rotation, and then we're going to come up and squeeze the hips. And what that's going to help us do, that's going to allow us to access the posterior fibers of glute medius, also glute max, to be able to hold the hip in a better position. So we would hold that position, you would hold that for a period of time, come down, and then you would start again with the second set. Now, how long you do, that is sort of how long is a piece of string. It will depend on the individual. If someone can hold that position for longer, then they can obviously go for longer. If someone can't, then they won't go that long. So exercise number 1 is the bridge. So it's coming down into that position, having a hip to shoulder width apart, and then just pushing out into external rotation to relax the anterior fibers of glute medius and activate the more posterior fibers. Now that's to say, it's not like an on and off switch, it's to heighten and dampen. So heighten the posterior and dampen the posterior and the anterior. So you heighten the posterior and dampen the anterior. The second one is the squat. We're essentially doing the same thing, we're just taking the band away. So what we're now going to do is consciously push our knees out as we go down. So we come into this position, we push the knees out, and then we come back up and we allow them to gravitate in. What we don't allow them to do is internally rotate into that position. So they come out, we push them out as we go down, and then we come back up. Again, that external rotation of the hip, again, it's not a lot, but it's just trying to get the knees out over the outside of the feet. Again, that's going to heighten the activity at the back, dampen it at the front. So that's the kind of thing that we need to be thinking about when we go down into that squat. But also, we don't want to be going into that sticking the bum out, because that again is reinforcing that lordotic position. We want to maintain the proper posture as we go down, externally rotate at the hip by pushing the knees out, and that's going to give us a much better muscle activation sequence, if you will, to be able to get the muscles working, the right muscles working at the right time. The third exercise being the clam. Now again, this one, I rarely use this exercise, so it's not one that I would always recommend, but what it does allow you to do, it does allow you to feel the area of the muscle that you want working. And what it also does is well, one, it's a very simple exercise, and it externally rotates the hip. So again, we need the band around the knees, but this time we come onto our side like this. We have a slight hinge at the hip and bend at the knee, and then all we're basically doing is just pulling that open. Now it's key here, what we don't do is just open out, but open out our whole body, because that's sort of defeating the object. What we want to be able to do is keep the body forward and then rotate at the hip. Again, it's accessing these posterior fibers of glute medius to be able to heighten their activity, to help, once we've relaxed them with the stretches, it helps pull the hip out of that internal rotation. So that's the type of thing that we want to be focusing on when we're talking about getting us out of hip internal rotation, if we've got it, with our